The English oral Matura examination is a 15-minute examination on 2 texts. One will be your book that you read privately, that you have selected from the Matura book list, and the second is on one of the books that we have read during the year. 7.5 minutes will be the first part on the private book. You will be given an Ausschnitt or excerpt from the book, and you will have 15 minutes to look over that excerpt and make notes on a desk that is in the room, which you will see in just a minute. And then the second half is just me asking you questions about one of the books that we have read, and you will get no excerpt for this book. There will be a second person in the room who will give you the excerpt, and I will be that person now. And he will give you the excerpt from your private book, and then you will sit down at a desk where you have a pen and paper to make notes for 15 minutes. Hello, Larissa.
Hello.
Here's your excerpt. You can sit right here and take notes for 15 minutes.
Thank you.
While you are in the room, another student will be being examined while you're taking notes, so that you will be hearing the other person being examined as you make your notes. You are now going to see an entire 15-minute examination, half on the private book and half on one of the books we read. Okay, listen. We're going to talk about your excerpt from 1984. And on that excerpt there's something about newspeak. Can you tell me something about that?
Newspeak is the new kind of English that they try to abolish the old kind of English because it makes people think they can express their thoughts and their feelings through language. And newspeak is a new kind of English that shortens English and makes less words and smaller words and tries to cut it down to its essence. It's a destruction of language which stops people from being able to express their thoughts and their wishes and emotions in language, which makes them more orthodox in the way that society in 1984 sees it right.
Okay. And there's one part there on your paper about talking about getting rid of Chaucer and Shakespeare and all these great writers. What do you think would happen to a society if it loses its culture?
It also loses itself, the identity. People can't be individuals anymore. They can't identify with their ancestors or their culture, which isn't good for society because they lose track of time too. Like the Ministry of Truth, they change historical facts, and so people don't know who they are or where they came from. They don't know where to go. They don't know what's right or wrong because they don't have anyone to look up to or any example of what's wrong and what the consequences of war and actions like that will be.
Okay. Do you think that newspeak is possibly happening in today's world in any way?
I think it is. It is happening, especially the kind of, today there's courses for bad English, which is kind of funny because good English is what everyone wants to speak, but then bad English is the English that everyone starts talking internationally because it's the English that's being used and the English that everyone understands. So I guess it's the degradation of language that's happening.
Okay. Well, where would you see bad English happening?
For example, when Chinese international managers talk to English international managers, the American or English international managers can't talk the language they're used to because the Chinese won't understand that high quality of language.
Okay. So actually it's because English is the universal language and so many people don't speak it well,
Exactly.
that the level is going down gradually. Interesting point. Now, going back to the book for a second, what about the ministries? So we have these ironic titles. Could you talk a little bit about the irony of some of these titles?
Like the Ministry of Love is there to torture people, and it makes the wars and stuff, and so that's irony, because love is the opposite of war and hate and everything.
But of course there is a truth in it, right? It is the ministry of love of what?
A love of war and love of lies and everything, destruction. They see destruction as something good for the society. They destruct the language, they destroy their history and everything.
Okay, yeah, it's true. And do you think that you know, them showing the war all the time, it's always on the television screen?
Yes, they want the people to be enthusiastic about something, because people have to be enthusiastic about something. And usually today they're enthusiastic about love and friends and having fun, and they want them to be enthusiastic about stuff like hate week. They have a hate week and war and all the negative things about life. To dumb them down, they want them to be like animals that follow the rules that they can, so that they can oppress them.
Can you think, if I go back there, I think of the final pages of the book, and Winston's sitting there, he's now defeated as a person, but what do they give the people you say to keep them dumbed down? What do they give them for free to keep them dumbed down?
They give them the love to Big Brother, who really doesn't exist.
But that was something else, something whatever they want, they can have it. Okay, what about alcohol? How does alcohol function?
It helps them, well, for one thing, they don't really have a lot of products, but they say they increase production every year, but really they don't, they just lie.
Okay.
And it's all made up. And so they have a lot of gin to get the people drunk, to make them be happy, because drunk people are usually happier and a little bit for a while at least.
Okay. Where do you think the peripeteia is in this book?
It's when Winston gets the note, "I love you" from Julia.
Okay. How about the climax then?
When they get caught in the house.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, it's confusing. So much happens in that book.
Okay. When you think about Orwell's intent, what do you think his intent is?
His intent is to show the worst case scenario. It's a foreshadowing in the book of the worst case scenario would turn out if an idealistic totalitarian government had all power and all control over the people and over the world.
Do you think that the book is prophetic in any way? That it tells about, it does foreshadow the future?
Not really. I don't think it will ever come true, but it could kind of go in that direction. So I guess parts of it.
What parts do you think could possibly come true?
The control with videos and all the bugs everywhere, the microphones, that could come true.
How do we have it today in a certain way? Those kind of things. How does our society today know about us, where we are, or what we're doing?
When you fly to America, for example, they take your fingerprints of everyone over 14, which is really young age, and so you're registered. Everyone's registered that has ever been to that country or left it. That's one example, and then another example are the video cameras in bathrooms and stuff like that, probably.
And also credit cards? I mean,
yes,
I don't know if you have them.
credit card records.
But when you get credit card records, they can trace everything.
That too.
But did you study anything in school about communist Russia? Because he's really writing about that a lot.
Yes.
Do you think that he's correct about communist Russia?
It's typical for communists to change the history to the way they want it. So that's a big part what he talks about in the book. Winston, the main character, keeps complaining about how they change history, and he thinks about it and thinks it's terrible, because it is a terrible thing to change the history to the way they want it. But really, today, when you look at the old books from DDR or communist Russia or something, it really does change things around. It's not the truth that you read. I'm not saying that the other books that they read in Western countries countries are the truth either, but nobody knows what the truth is. Because everyone's gonna write it from their opinion and their view.
Okay.
And make themselves, their country, seem better than it was, probably.
Okay. All right. We're going to talk now about Streetcar and Desire. The color blue is throughout this play in different scenes. Can you describe why blue is a color you think that Tennessee Williams has used in the play a lot for the lighting?
Blue is a cold color, as in light, and it's also a color that a cool color. It feels cool and it makes you calms down. It's a calming color.
Okay,
But
that's true. But in the history of literature, it means it has a symbol of depression. And do you think that there's a reason for that being used by Tennessee Williams, if I tell you that?
yes, Blanche is definitely a character who is depressed with her life, and who she's at the end she goes insane because of that depression.
Okay,
And
she's
she's
depressed.
not the only one.
Okay. But as a reader of the book, do you find anything depressing besides Blanche's depression?
Yes, it's a lot of talk about death and cemeteries and loss of hope, and so it's a depressing book. It's the atmosphere the book has is depressing.
Okay. We talked about in class about Stanley representing the modern world, Blanche representing the traditional world, and that Tennessee Williams is sorry to see the traditional world go. Blanche likes a certain kind of relationship with a man, a traditional gentleman. When we look at that again, compared to the relationship of Stanley and Stella, what's different here?
Blanche likes it traditional when the man is a gentleman to the woman, and the woman is there for him to make him feel comfortable and everything, be his lady, but not his slave, really. And she sees in the relationship between Stella and Stanley, she sees that it's more an obsession rather than love. It's not love that goes deep, but rather a sexual obsession that they have with each other. And Stanley hits Stella, and she obviously doesn't agree with that treatment of a woman in a relationship that should be equal and true.
Okay. And also, Mitch doesn't approve, right? Mitch gets upset during a scene when that all happens.
Yes,
And
Mitch has
okay.
a good connection with his mother, and no one knows who his father is, so he probably has his mother, because he has this connection with his mother, he probably thinks differently. But otherwise, he's not the same as Stanley. He's not a brutal man. He's an emotional man, because he gets really upset when Stanley tells him about Blanche's promiscuity in what's the city with that?
Okay, back at the hotel in Laurel.
Yeah, Laurel.
Okay.
Right.
What do you think? Okay, now Mitch was Blanche's hope, and then he changed his mind, and then at the end we see that he changed his mind back in a way. He's sorry. What do you think when you look at these actions? Is his hamartia? What do you think Mitch's hamartia is, in your opinion?
He can't stand the pressure, and of
Which
what
pressure?
people say,
Okay.
of what others think,
Okay.
and he can't stand the pressure to have his friends not like his woman in that way.
What do you think Tennessee Williams' intent is in this play?
He wants to show that women and men should be treated equally, and that he also would prefer the traditional world to the modern world, and that today's world can be depressing for people and can destroy lives if the person isn't up to living in that world.
Okay, when you talk about him, the men and women are not treated equally, do you think that he uses the card game to show that in any way?
Yes, the men get to play cards and the women have to go in the back room, and they aren't allowed to turn on the radio or listen to the radio because that's annoying for the men.
Okay.
That shows that they're not being treated equally. The men oppress the women.
All right. at the end of the play when the they're taking Blanche to the psychiatric hospital, and then the doctor picks her off the floor, and she says to him, "I've always depended upon the kindness of strangers." Why is this an important sentence, do you think, in the play?
Because Blanche is dependent on men and on love and everything she gets from really the strangers she meets. And she couldn't live without them, she wouldn't survive. And that in the end she doesn't survive because the people weren't kind to her, the strangers weren't kind to her. So that's why she.
Do you think? Okay, that's true. I mean, when you, if you lived your life with that kind of sentence, do you think it's dangerous?
It's dangerous, yes,
Why?
of course, because you never know what a stranger wants from you. You never know how it will end.
But don't we fall in love with strangers?
Yes, he'll probably
basically?
use you. I mean.
It's possible, sure.
Yes.
But don't we usually fall in love with strangers?
Yeah, you usually do, but I guess it's a chance you take, it's a risk you take.
Okay, right. So this is the risk, but unfortunately for Blanche.
Unfortunately, but she's not careful enough. You always need to be careful with strangers, even when you're in love or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she isn't careful enough. And
Okay.
she didn't tell the truth to Mitch. It probably would have ended differently if she would have told Mitch instead of him finding out.
That's true. Probably would have ended differently. But of course, another thing is her fear of how a woman is when you grow older.
She's trying to run away
You're
from
no longer
herself.
attractive. Yeah, but it's also that she's trying to keep herself looking good, or she won't get any men.
Yeah.
Because women age worse than men.
But she's
unfortunately.
thinking way too materialistic. If a guy is gonna love a girl, he's gonna not love her because of the way she looks.
Perhaps. Maybe that's the fault of society.
Yes.
I don't know. Okay, Larissa. That's it.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay. Looking at the grade, this paper that I've given you, and that we also have up on the overhead projector, but I just want to show you how it was graded. We had the language section, 50%. As far as grammatical accuracy and range of vocabulary goes, Larissa was excellent, and to 30 points out of 30. And her fluency, pronunciation, ability to comprehend or understand and react to my question was also excellent. So she has full points in this section, and that equals a 50. Over in this section, which is the content, what I asked her, she didn't quite answer a few questions correctly, but generally it was very good, and she has 22.5 points out of 25. That is a 5.5 in this section. And interpretation of text, there are also a couple of things that she didn't quite have right, but it was very good in general, and it's also a 5.5. Together, this is a 45 points in this section. So you add 50 and 45, and you get 95. And if you look at the scale here, that is a 6. So, you have here a good example of a very good performance, and so you can see against this how you can do when you are tested in the oral Matura. So my advice is make sure you know your book. Maybe you won't get peripeteia and climax and the author's intent completely correct, but if you know your book, it's very difficult to go seriously wrong in the English oral Matura. So that's my advice to you, and good luck.